Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show that cuts through the noise and gets you well-informed fast. Today, we're diving into artificial intelligence. AI, it's becoming the very lifeblood of organizations, isn't it? Shaping industries everywhere.
Absolutely. It offers these huge competitive advantages.
Right. But here's the thing. Many organizations are still really grappling with adopting it. They seem stuck in the early stages.
Yeah, that's definitely what the research shows. Like in pharmaceuticals, a survey found AI maturity was often at a, quote, nascent level. Really basic stuff for most respondents.
So how do companies even begin to navigate this? It seems incredibly complex.
Well, that's where these AI maturity models, or AIMs, come into play.
AIMs.
Yeah, they're basically a systematic way to help companies figure out where they stand with AI and, what the path forward looks like.
Got it. And our deep dive today is based on a systematic literature review looking into these aims.
Exactly. It's called Artificial Intelligence Maturity Model, a systematic literature review by Sadiq and colleagues from 2021. A solid piece of work.
Okay, great. So our mission today for you, our listener, is to really unpack these models. What are they? Why do organizations need them? How are they developed? And what does the current landscape tell us about AI adoption overall?
We want to get past the hype and give you the key insights, fast.
Perfect. All right, let's get into it. Why are these aims actually necessary?
Well, you started by saying AI is transformative, and it really is a disruptive technology. It can fundamentally change how businesses operate.
How so, specifically?
Think about dealing with incomplete data, which is a huge problem, or using diverse tech like machine learning, NLP, computer vision. It's not just about efficiency. It's about gaining a real competitive edge, boosting performance, increasing productivity, often while lowering costs. That's the promise.
That's a big promise.
Yeah.
But as we mentioned, many organizations are far from applying AI, or they're stuck at these early stages with limited benefits.
Right. That pharma survey, again, finding maturity at a nascent level for, 75 to 100% of the highest rated respondents, that's a huge disconnect.
So why? Why the struggle? What are the common roadblocks?
Well, there are the usual suspects. Implementation costs, maybe not having enough good data.
Sure, the practical stuff.
Yeah, and sometimes strategic goals just don't align with the AI initiatives. But what really stands out in the research are the human-related issues.
Human issues like what? Skills gaps?
That's a big part of it. Lack of specialized expertise, definitely. But also resistance to change.
The organizational inertia.
Exactly. And sometimes even a lack of real support from top management. Plus, the source lists other challenges too.
Go on.
Things like just the sheer difficulty of organizational implementation, worries about AI safety trust, privacy, ethics.
Those are becoming huge topics.
They are. And then there's lack of governance, inadequate infrastructure. It really highlights that just buying the tech isn't nearly enough. The whole organization needs to be ready.
That makes sense. So if AI is powerful but tricky to adopt, these maturity models step in to help.
Precisely. The whole idea of a maturity model originally came about to help organizations sort of find a path to improve. They evaluate capability.
How do they do that?
Think of them as action-oriented standards. They usually have discrete levels, stages of maturity,
Wow.
and they basically show you what needs to change to get from one level to the next.
So an AMM specifically applies this to artificial intelligence.
Right. It defines an organization's degree of readiness for AI. It assesses those internal capabilities we talked about. It guides the journey, lets you compare capabilities internally, or even benchmark against leaders in the field. It's like a diagnostic tool and a roadmap combined.
Okay, that clarifies the why and what. Now, how did the researchers in this review actually study these AMs? You mentioned a systematic literature review, an SLR.
Yes, and that means it was rigorous, not just a casual browse. They followed a specific multi-step process.
Like a checklist?
Sort of. It's an 8-step guideline they used, covering everything from defining the purpose, setting up a protocol, searching the literature thoroughly, then screening the papers, pulling out the key data, checking the quality of the studies they included, and finally synthesizing the findings. Very methodical.
And they searched widely.
Very widely. 8 major academic databases: Scopus, Web of Science, Springerlink, Google Scholar, places like that.
Using keywords?
Yep, specific ones like artificial intelligence and debiturity to really focus the search, but still cast a wide net initially.
And how many studies did they actually end up analyzing?
That's the interesting part. They started with almost 700 papers,
Wow.
but after screening titles, then abstracts, then reading the full text, they narrowed it down to just 15 primary papers.
Only 15. Why so few?
Because they had strict criteria. The papers had to be specifically about AI maturity models, not just AI in general, and published after 2015 to keep it current. It shows how relatively new or perhaps niche this specific area of AM research was, at least up to 2021.
Okay, so a focused set of recent studies. What did this review actually find about the AM landscape? What were the key takeaways?
Well, first, looking at the objectives of these 15 studies, something interesting popped out.
What was that?
Half of them, about 7 or 8 papers, weren't just analyzing existing AMs. They were focused on developing completely new ones.
Developing new models. What does that tell us?
It suggests there's a kind of dissatisfaction in the research community with the models already out there. Like they feel the need to keep creating new approaches,
Because the existing ones aren't good enough?
potentially, or maybe just not validated properly. And that's the other striking finding, the validation gap.
Validation gap.
Yeah, less than half, only 7 out of the 15 models they reviewed had actually been empirically validated.
Wait, so most of these proposed models, nobody really checked if they actually work in the real world?
That seems to be the implication. They're proposed, maybe based on theory or expert opinion, but rigorous testing, often missing. That's a pretty big asterisk for anyone thinking of adopting one.
Definitely. So, lots of proposals, not much proof. What about the methods used? How are they built and tested?
Well, for developing the models, qualitative methods like content analysis were most common. Reviewing literature, expert interviews.
Makes sense for initial development.
Right. But for the few that were validated, they tended to use mixed methods. Like they might send out surveys and then follow up with case studies or interviews to get richer data, trying to bridge theory and practice.
Okay. Now, what about the scope? Are these AMs meant to be universal or more specific?
Mostly specific, the review found 10 out of the 15 were domain-specific, meaning tailored for a particular industry or context, like models just for retail or just for logistics or even just for evaluating automation and drug research.
Why so specific?
Because AI adoption looks really different depending on the industry. The challenges, the data, the applications, they vary wildly. So as the source says, there's really no one size of AM that suits all organizations. A generic model might be too superficial.
Right, context matters.
Yeah.
Do they look at the whole company or just parts of it?
Both. Most operate at either the company department level, giving a broad overview, or down at the process level, focusing on something specific like AI governance or innovation within R&D.
Okay, let's shift from the what to the how. How are these models actually designed? What's their architecture like?
In terms of design, the dominant approach was bottom-up,
Bottom up.
meaning they seem to build the model based on observing existing practices or evidence of maturity, rather than starting with a predefined theoretical framework, which would be top-down. 4 studies explicitly mention this bottom-up approach, none reported being top-down.
Why bottom up for AI?
It probably makes more sense for a rapidly evolving field like AI. You look at what early adopters are doing right, what capabilities seem to matter on the ground, and build up from there.
And the structure, are they complex frameworks?
Often they use things like maturity grids or like ERT-like questionnaires, basically rating scales.
Nimbler tools.
Relatively. What's less common are those highly structured phased models like the original capability maturity model, the CMM.
Why not use those? They're well established in software engineering.
Probably because they can be quite rigid and complex. You often have to master everything in one level before moving to the next. For AI, which changes so fast, maybe that's just too cumbersome.
Okay, more flexible approaches seem preferred. What about the overall architecture?
Continuous representation is the most common.
Continuous.
Yeah, it means an organization can work on improving different capabilities like data handling or model deployment somewhat independently and incrementally. You don't have to hit, say, level 3 across the board before improving one area further. It allows for more flexibility.
That sounds much more practical. And how many levels do they typically have? Is there a standard?
5 levels seems to be the most common.
Any reason for 5?
It's generally seen as a good balance. Enough detail to show progression, but not so many levels that it becomes overly complicated or the distinctions get blurry.
Okay, 5 levels, continuous structure, often bottom up. Now, you mentioned something earlier about terminology.
Ah, yes. This was a key finding. There's a real lack of standard terminology for the components within these models.
What do you mean?
The things being measured, the capabilities or factors they get, called all sorts of things. Dimensions, constructs, elements, indicators.
So everyone uses different words for similar concepts.
Pretty much. Dimensions is the most common term. But the inconsistency makes it hard to compare models directly or build on previous work effectively. It signals a field still finding its feet, terminology-wise.
Despite the messy terms, did the review identify any core dimensions that seem critical across models?
Yes, it did. Synthesizing across the studies, they pinpointed several critical success factors or dimensions that ideally should be measured.
It's okay.
Things like data, analytics, technology and tools, intelligent automation, governance, people, and organization.
That sounds comprehensive. Data, tech, people, structure.
It covers the key bases. But here's a crucial point. The review found that many models don't actually capture all these critical dimensions.
Really? Which ones get missed?
Governance is a big one that's often underrepresented, even in models looking at the entire company.
Governance. So the rules, the ethics, the oversight.
Exactly. And also, the people and organization dimensions sometimes get short shrift. It's a major gap. If you're not assessing governance or organizational readiness, you're missing huge potential failure points for AI projects. It's not just about the algorithm.
That's a really important takeaway. An incomplete assessment could lead you down the wrong path.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the purpose. What do these AIMs actually help organizations do?
Well, the vast majority, 13 out of the 15 studies, described models that are primarily descriptive.
Descriptive, meaning they just describe.
Pretty much. They tell you the status quo. They help you understand where you are on the maturity scale right now. It's an assessment tool.
Okay, so they diagnose the current state. But do they tell you how to get better? How to move up the levels?
Less often. Only 6 studies described models that were prescriptive,
Prescriptive.
meaning they offer a roadmap for improvement. They give guidance on how to get to a higher level of maturity, what steps to take, what capabilities to build.
So most models tell you where you are, but fewer tell you how to move forward.
Exactly. And even fewer, only 3 studies described models that were comparative.
Allowing you to benchmark against others.
Right, letting you see how you stack up against competitors or peers. So the big picture here is that many existing models might diagnose your current state, but they often lack the practical guidance for improvement or the ability to benchmark externally. That limits their utility quite a bit.
That seems like a significant gap between what organizations probably want from a model and what many models actually provide.
I think that's fair to say.
So putting this all together, what's the path forward for AIMs? Where do things need to go?
Well, the review concludes that many current aims do not provide a complete image to evaluate and increase AI in companies.
Because of the issues we've discussed.
Yes. The lack of solid theoretical grounding in some cases, the really insufficient validation we talked about, and the limited prescriptive or comparative features.
So what's needed then? More rigor.
Definitely. More rigorous validation is crucial. We need proof these models work and are reliable, valid, and generalizable across different contexts.
And better foundations.
Yes, integrating established theoretical foundations, like drawing on process theory or the resource-based view of the firm, could make the models stronger and more coherent.
What else?
The review also stressed involving stakeholders more in model development.
You mean the people who will actually use the models?
Exactly. Practitioners, managers, academics working together. This helps ensure the models are actually practical, relevant, and address real-world needs, make them more demand-driven.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Any other gaps?
Well, there's a need for more studies that actually try to measure all those critical dimensions we listed earlier. Data, tech, governance, people, organization. Getting the full picture. And specifically, exploring the maturity of the AI workforce seems like an important, perhaps understudied area. You can have the best tech, but if your people aren't ready or skilled up, it won't fly.
It sounds like the field of AIMs, while important, is still very much evolving.
Very much so. There's a clear need for improvement.
And for you, our listener, understanding these limitations and trends is really valuable, isn't it?
Absolutely. It means you can look at any AMM critically. Does it cover the key dimensions? Has it been validated? Is it just descriptive, or does it offer actionable guidance? You can ask the right questions.
It helps you move beyond just accepting a model at face value and figure out what you truly need to advance AI effectively in your context.
Precisely. And Hopefully, you now have a deeper sense of what AI maturity really entails. It's so much more than just the technology itself.
Right, it's the whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
The people, the processes, the data handling, the governance structures.
All of it needs to mature together.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. When you hear about the next big technology trend, whatever it might be, think about applying this maturity model lens. How could you use that kind of framework to think about how any organization, or maybe even you personally, could move beyond just observing the trend and instead actively figure out how to progress effectively and really maximize its potential? Something to consider.